So keep in mind, they were medicated trying to control their A1C during this particular intervention with the low-carb diet. They came off of those medications because they wanted to see the power of the diet itself, and they still saw improvements in their A1C. That should get the spidey senses up of anyone paying attention. Here you had heavily medicated type 2 diabetics, and they were able to come off of 35 different medications just with a low-carb diet. Is that encouraging to you? I think it should be very encouraging. Cases of note include 6 patients who were able to come off of insulin. So some of them were taking, remember, type 2 diabetics don't have to take insulin unless their insulin production is just so reduced that they need it. They came off of it altogether. A further 9 who had their insulin dosage reduced significantly using the definition of type 2 diabetes remission. Of the 143 patients who chose a low-carb diet, 68 were off of all their drugs for diabetes, and their A1C came down into well within the healthy range. It equates to a remission rate of 48%. You know, if we had a drug that produced 48% basically curing of diabetes, they would be heralding that as a breakthrough miracle drug. But it's not a drug. It's just a low-carb diet. Can they not see that there's something there? There's a there. Of course there is. Updated remission rates for this cohort between 2017 and 2021 are in the supplemental. They have now seen an increase from 31% to 52% over 4 years, a drug-free remission rate for the practice overall, using the total number of patients with type 2 diabetes and our practice register as a denominator is now at 20% as of March of 2021. In other words, of all their patients that have come in, 20% of them have reversed and cured their type 2 diabetes. That is amazing. How about lipid profiles? Table 1 shows a statistically significant reduction in the total cholesterol as well as triglycerides, not surprising. We also saw a significant increase in HDL cholesterol and a corresponding significant decrease in the calculated LDL. This is despite a net total of 5 patients who were on a statin drug. They came off of the statin during the study. Are you guys getting this in this study? They started the study with heavily medicated type 2 diabetic patients with major insulin resistance. They put them on a low-carb diet, and they're coming off of drugs, and they're improving all these cardiovascular risk markers, these renal risk markers, their blood sugar and their insulin, all getting better on a low-carb diet. If we need proof positive that this way of eating is healthy, I think we're seeing it in this brand new study.
Tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
Improvements in blood pressure were observed. The mean reduction of the systolic and diastolic blood pressure was 11.7 and 5.7 respectively. This was despite 18 of the patients taken off of their hypertensive medication. So again, came off of medications. They came off of insulin and diabetes medications. They came off of the statin for their cholesterol. They came off of the hypertension medication for their high blood pressure. The moral of this story is go on a low-carb ketogenic diet and you could come off of your medications. And I don't know about you, I haven't had to be on medications for 17 years, but those medications add up monetarily. They take a hit. And never mind that they're not actually dealing with the underlying cause of why you have those issues. They just cover it up. And people are oblivious that if they simply shifted their diet to more of a low-carb approach, they wouldn't have to be on those medications. All right, so in the discussion part of the study, the UK prospective diabetes study showed that over a median of 15 years from type 2 diabetes diagnosis, nearly 40% of patients developed albuminuria and nearly 30% developed renal impairment. Having advised a low-carb diet to a cohort of 143 people with type 2 diabetes, we observed over an average of 30 months significant improvements in a range of variables relevant to renal and cardiovascular health: creatinine, eGFR, urine ACR, HbA1c, blood pressure, weight. This is remarkable when you consider this cohort was an average age of 61. Usually they say, oh, they're too old to change now. A lot of people tell themselves that. It's too late. I've lived too much life and too much damage has been done. It's too late. And if this study says nothing else, it tells you it's never too late. Never. An average duration of type 2 diabetes at baseline was 5 years and 3 months. So they thought they were going to be diabetic forever. Typically, a general pattern of deterioration in these parameters over such a time would be anticipated. Our results also contradict the literature on renal aging, which is considered by many to be part of the normal aging process of cellular and organ senescence. So that's true. As you get older, you just assume you're going to lose your mental faculties. God, I hope I keep my mental faculties as I get older, because that's something I value. I greatly value the way my brain operates, the way I feel mentally. This phenomenon describes how progressive physiological nephron loss in adults leads to a reduction of eGFR at a rate of 1 milliliter per minute, blah, 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 blah. In the context of type 2 diabetes and kidney disease, anticipating an even greater rate of decline in eGFR would not be considered unreasonable. This makes the mean improvement that they saw during this study all the more remarkable. To our knowledge, this is the first primary care service evaluation data published that suggests that the management of type 2 diabetes with a low-carb diet may improve the biomarkers of kidney disease. You guys getting this? You know anybody in your life dealing with some kidney issues that are also type 2 diabetic? Could it be their diet that's exacerbating it? Could be. In this review, we consider 3 major factors in kidney disease: chronic hyperglycemia, so high blood pressure or blood sugar, body weight, and hypertension, high blood pressure. We also explore the possible role of dietary macronutrients, so the fat, protein, carbohydrate, particularly focusing in on protein and carbohydrates and getting those in the proper amounts on the renal function in those with type 2 diabetes. So they took a look at hyperglycemia in a diabetic kidney disease. So this is the high blood sugar. Many of the underlying mechanisms for kidney disease can be attributed directly to chronic hyperglycemia playing a central part in a cascade of damaging effects. Hyperglycemia, with its osmotic effect, leads to an increased renal filtration, an increased glomerular pressure, which in turn leads to glomerular hyperfiltration, a high local production of angiotensin II at the effervent arteriole produces vasoconstriction, worsening the situation. In other words, it makes it worse, and it's not a good thing. Associated with this are the negative effects of advanced glycation end products, AGEs. If you're not familiar with that before, AGEs, advanced glycation end products, nasty, and think of their ages because they age you. It's the way to remember them. The result of irreversible glycation of proteins occurring in the presence of intracellular hyperglycemia. In other words, the proteins in your blood mixed with this higher blood sugar, ostensibly from the carbohydrates you're eating in your diet, actually causes this AGE production to get ramped way up. AGEs impair the function of both the intracellular and the extracellular proteins. And guess what it does? It leads to inflammation and cell damage. So if we're trying to lower inflammation and we're trying to protect our cell health, you don't want AGEs in the body. The average weight of our cohort was the 97.3 kilos, 215 pounds. So many of them were overweight. Hyperglycemia in the setting of obesity may also impair this process of autophagy. So you usually hear about that in terms of fasting. It's all these dead proteins in the body. Well, guess what? Those proteins, in the presence of higher blood sugar, if you don't get rid of them, they will glycate. They will develop these advanced glycation end products, and you will get this cell breakdown, and you will get increases in inflammation. It's inevitable. It includes and involves intracellular degradation of the cytotoxic proteins and organelles by lysosomes wherever a cell is experiencing oxidative stress. Impaired autophagy leads to renal tubular cell damage. Yet another reason why you should try to focus in on getting some periods of fasting to induce this autophagy. Get rid of those proteins so that they cannot become impaired and lead to oxidative stress, which would then lead to kidney issues. You don't want to damage your kidneys. And it's not so much the protein you're eating in your diet like they've claimed. It's the proteins that just kind of are left floating in the body, nowhere to go. All you would need to do is fast for a few days and clean those up and do a reset. But most people don't do that. And then they lead to all these inflammatory problems in the body. One major cohort study investigating primary and secondary prevention of kidney disease demonstrated that simply reducing HbA1c via a combination of anti-diabetic medications as well as lifestyle modifications can have favorable effects on the development of kidney disease. However, intensive glycemic control with certain medications is associated with an increased risk of hypoglycemia. So it could drop the blood sugar too much doing it medically, which is why having nutritional and other lifestyle approaches is always a good idea to have in your back pocket. This is why our low-carb diet service was associated with a mean improvement in A1C, and nearly half of these patients, 48% of them, got to drug-free status as a type 2 diabetic in remission, thus minimizing their risk for this hypoglycemia. As per the various mechanisms described above, we hypothesize that a reduction in chronic hyperglycemia decreases the osmotic diuretic effects, thus reducing glomerular hyperfiltration and many of the other risk factors contributing to kidney disease. By all accounts, eating a low-carb diet improves kidney disease progression so that you're not going to deal with that issue. So the UK prospective diabetes study concluded that mortality rates for those with nephropathy are high, increasing from 1.4 to 4.6 and to 19.2 for those with renal impairment. More intensive blood glucose control resulted in a 33% reduction in relative risk of development of microalbuminuria and clinical grade proteinuria at 12 years, and a significant reduction in the proportion doubling their plasma creatinine. This seems to justify a closer look at the methods for how we can improve hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, in a clinical context to preserve renal function in at-risk groups. Are you getting this, guys? You guys are probably getting it because you follow my work, but tell people dealing with kidney disease, dealing with type 2 diabetes, dealing with high cholesterol and they're worried about the cholesterol and cardiovascular health, tell them it's related to your high blood sugar. Do things to get your blood sugar under control. Check your blood sugar. And now we've got these CGMs, the continuous glucose monitors you can put in your arm. There's no excuse why you're not testing your blood sugar at this point. And see how you do and get it under control sooner than later. Reducing your dietary sugar and refined carbohydrate intake is arguably the logical first step in achieving this lowering of hyperglycemia. The significant improvements in A1C in our cohort, in whom 97% of the people in this study reduced their A1C despite coming off of all of their diabetes medications, appears to support this approach. How about body